Hello and welcome to this episode of Hampton Roads Business Live. My name is Rory Graham and I'm your host, and today we have the pleasure of having with us William Perry from the Environmental Graphic Design International Company. Why don't we just start off by, that's a long name, why don't we just start off by you giving us an overview of what your company does?
Okay. Well, Roy, basically we're a graphic design presentation company that allows our clients to facilitate their ideas, concepts, and pretty much any ideas that they may have in reference to developing their particular ideas for the market. Mainly it's CGI presentations.
Okay, for people who don't know what CGI is.
Okay, CGI is computer-generated imaging.
Okay.
And for the most part, that will allow you to generate graphically the concepts and ideas for their particular projects.
So instead of doing dinosaurs and spaceships, you're doing desks and chairs and walls and paintings and...
Right. I give you an example.
Office environment.
Office environments. Like, for instance, we just completed a design-build project for Loving Images photo studio, which is located in Norfolk, Virginia, and actually it's in Janus Shopping Center. What we did was we created a 3D rendering of that particular location. We obviously go through consultation with the client to find out exactly what their needs are. And then from that, we develop a 3D model of actually what their location is going to be. From that 3D model, we also develop floor plans as well. And then from that, we will also show them the aspects of what the cost is going to be for the completion. So in other words, we do a full-scale package for them, and then that's presented to them. And then, of course, we take it from that stage to the completed project, which can be actually a build-out.
And you get involved in that as well?
Yeah, we do. We have certified architects. We have certified builders, Class A contractors. And this is also basically dealing with the commercial side of it. And then we have a residential side as well. I'll tell you a little bit more about that.
All right, so let's stick with this, this photo place that you did.
Okay.
All right. When you did that for them, what's the immediate benefit that they got out of that?
Well, first off, we finished that project within 3 weeks. And the reason why was because of the fact that we did use the rendering process, the three-dimensional graphics. And what that does is, in other words, if you're going to build something and have a renovation done to a retail space, instead of actually seeing the finished product and saying, oh, you know what, we need to move that wall, or we need to move that desk, or we need to move this particular partition, we actually do that inside the computer-generated graphic model. So it saves time and money, basically.
So you can spot problems or
exactly
beforehand, and it helps the client see it.
Exactly.
See exactly what it's going to, a representation of what it's going to look like.
Right.
And this is used all the time. I know in the creative field. I mean, in the movies they use previs all the time.
Right.
And I know we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like storyboards on steroids.
That's right.
But it gives you a really good representation. It helps you plan.
Right.
It helps you make good decisions because
right.
you can actually see it. It's one thing to kind of, well, I think that would look pretty good there.
Right.
It's another thing to look at it and go, oh, it doesn't look good there.
That's right. Because you're going to save so much more in expenses for not making those changes. And it really doesn't. We offer 3 different design changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically, a client comes to us and say, well, you know, we saw the first 3 renderings. We like those 3 renderings, which is what they'll receive. Any additional renderings obviously would be an extended cost, but it's in reason. And from that point, we will show them any changes that need to be made with the end result. And that really solidifies the fact of how they're going to get their project done on time and within budget.
Right. Okay, and you mentioned cost. I know that, you know, over the years, technology changes. And
right.
I remember when we first did animations
Oh,
and
yeah,
things,
yeah.
we would sit and watch the thing draw line by line.
Right.
I mean, it was weeks to get something done.
Right.
Of course, that's gotten better and better, and the rendering engines are are faster and faster. And of course, at the same time, the technology's improved so much.
It has.
So if people had ever priced this in the past, you know, it may have been out of their budget, but nowadays it's a different story. So I would, you know, encourage them to reprice it, right?
Right, exactly. It's right now it's very affordable. Like you had said, the time in the production of rendering, or the time in that aspect alone, obviously made it somewhat not tangible for most people in the past, because of so many hours that had to be put into the basic rendering aspect of it. But now, I mean, rendering is what, well, we don't want to really say what it is, do we?
It depends on what's in it.
Exactly.
And on how realistic it is, it depends. But, you know, you got ray tracing and all on.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a different ball game now.
It is.
In all aspects of the technology. So I have a question here,
Sure.
which is, what is pre-sale design renovation? And go ahead and tell us that.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. It's fairly new. We actually decided to take a look at how we can use our technology and allowing our customers that are into real estate, whether it be commercial or residential, how we can save them money when they go into, say, for instance, I'll use this as an example. Let's say we have a real estate investor who is buying homes, and he wants to resell those homes. And of course, those homes have to be remodeled, okay, or they have to be renovated. Well, a lot of times they have to buy the property, and then in turn they have to go ahead and put their money for investment in whatever that may be, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And then the house basically probably sits for, so how many years, I mean, how many weeks, I mean, how many months, for instance. Okay, so.
It's been years.
Yeah, in some cases, lately it has, right? Well, hopefully that'll change. But, I mean, as far as what we offer, it actually speeds that process up. Yeah. And what we do is we offer this service, pre-sale renovation services, where the client comes to us and says, okay, we're going to want to sell this property. What we do is we actually design the property as a totally renovated property. We have appraisers that work with us. We have actually a team of individuals that are actually qualified to do this. So we actually go ahead and do the appraising on the finished result of what that rendering is going to be in that floor plan. And in turn, they're able to get a loan based upon that. And that's a very unique service.
Are they using that? Okay, using that to get a loan. That's a real asset.
Yeah.
But do they also use it to sell it? Do they say, you know, this is what it's going to look like?
Absolutely.
You know, so they don't have to have it done. They don't have to do it yet.
Now, this is the sweet thing about it. They can actually take that package that we present. We actually put a total package together, which then includes an inspection of the property. It also includes the evaluation or an appraiser's involvement, and it also includes the actual lender's involvement. And you also have people that are actually real estate agents that actually bring the client to the investor. Now, so what happens is we put the package together. We show that package to the potential buyer. Okay. The lending aspect is then introduced, and that then property is sold with in fact the construction loan involved in that, and also the end result is they get to sell the whole property completed. So in other words, that investor doesn't have to come out of their pocket for $40,000, $50,000 for renovation to get it at the end of the sale. Right. Or within the sale itself.
And I would imagine that would certainly make it easier to sell. I mean, it's one thing to show some barren building or whatever. It's another thing to show it all built out. Or
exactly. And then, of course, there's stipulations involved in that. And there's also, we have what they call a cost buffer in reference to the unforeseen things that come up within the property and the renovation aspect of it. But for the most part, that has worked really well. And that's something that happened to come. We kind of stumbled across that when we had a couple of builders come to us and say, hey, we'd like you to do this. And we thought, well, this is kind of a unique idea. I think we should probably take this a little further.
Sounds like a good model.
Yeah,
you know?
it is. It is. It works well.
Okay. My next question here was, what are the benefits of using EGD International pre-sale design renovation services? And I know we've been through some of those
Sure.
already.
Yeah.
So the idea is that people get to see it before
Right.
it's done, or before they do it, or before they buy it.
Right.
They get to make changes.
Right.
They get to, so they're making a mistake in the computer, not for real.
Exactly.
That's
Oh, they don't have
huge-
that
huge
expense. Yes, they avoid that
Yeah.
expense totally. Roy, what I wanted to mention also too, in reference to the aspect of presentation, a lot of people may say, especially in the commercial side of it, they may decide that they want to buy a property, a building, and they may see something that they say, well, I want to convert this building into a learning center, a daycare, or they may want to turn it into a restaurant. In order for them to do that, first they have to go through city planning. So one of the things that we also offer is, in the same line, is that we were able to do their presentation for city planning. And the planning boards obviously love this because the technology is up to speed where they now accept 3D renderings and animations and such for the presentation for the client. And it's mandatory actually now. And so when we actually put these packages together, we work strictly with the city as well in reference to, developing their.
And that can speed that process along.
Extraordinary. It is.
Yeah.
It really does. They
Because
love
it can be a long process if you know.
It is. And of course, the application process is pretty tedious. And we work with them as well, on orchestrating that because you have site plans that have to be constructed and you have floor plans and elevations and things. And what we do is we just present that whole package to them, and then in turn they can take that to the city in reference to the presentations for the
Sounds like
city.
you got all the
planning and
bases covered.
Well, I spent 3 years. I spent 3 years on a planning and zoning board in North Carolina, so I know a little bit about that. So it helps.
So you got the
Just a
inside
tad
track
bit.
there. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, some of these the questions are you've touched on already. And one of them here was what are the needs of your clients? And I think we've touched on some of those. Is a need to be able to see it, to be able to plan with it, to be able to use it in the zoning, to be able to use it to get a loan.
Right.
That's what we've talked about so far. Is
Absolutely.
there other things?
Well, let's see. Once again, the grant process is also important.
We haven't actually, gone into that. Okay, but we will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you want to save that
No,
for now?
go ahead. No, go ahead. Now you're stepping all over them. Go ahead.
Well, that's TV for you, right?
Yeah, that's all right. Hey, it's a live interview, man. But you're doing great.
Thanks. As far as grants, 70 to 75% of grants are approved based on having the visualization process involved with the grant process. Normally, if a client comes to us and says, well, we have an idea for XYZ, like a daycare or some type of facility that they want to do. And in turn, we'll take that, their ideas and their concepts, learn what it is that they're doing, follow the criteria of what the grant process is, and then put that package together for them.
Okay, let's take a typical client, and they would call you and say, I've got this project. What is the process? Do you meet with them? Do they come in and meet with you? Is there a consultation?
Okay.
How long does it take? Not the meeting, but how long does the process take? And I'm sure that's variable. But
well, there's a consultation. The consultation is it's a free consultation. They come in.
Free's good.
Free's good. Free helps. And we get an idea to find out exactly what their needs are. From that, then we can develop a profile as to what the processes would be, and then from there we can develop their ideas and the concepts, or take them in the right direction.
How long does it take before, if they give you the go ahead? How long does it take before you come back to them with something? Typically, is it?
We're pretty
Weeks,
efficient.
months?
Oh, we're pretty quick on getting the things that we need back to them. What happens is we normally look at a process of within a week to 2 weeks, and depending on the lengthy part of the ideas that they present to us. And say, for instance, it's a difference between someone that says, well, I have a project that I have a retail store I want to open up, and I want the full-scale design aspect of what you guys do. You know, I want my sign, I want my interior graphics, I want my interior design space built out, you know, show me the whole concepts of what you're proposing. We've been able to turn that around within 2 weeks. I mean, complete from, and this is just the design aspect of it, with changes also.
Okay.
And then from there we can, then, or if it's...
Go to the next step if that's what they want to do.
And this is all based on the size of the project, the scale of the project. I mean, you know.
And I would imagine that, and we kind of mentioned that you can spot problems, but I would imagine that when you're doing something, a lot of times things they had in mind aren't possible, or they don't want to do it because of zoning, or they don't want to do it because of some expensive thing they'd have to do to make that happen. And this is a great way to find that out ahead of time.
It troubleshoots. And I can tell you that this has happened in the past. Matter of fact, we just had a client, it was a learning center. I keep saying learning center because learning centers are one of the, oh gosh, they're intensive. There's a lot of information that has to go into it, and because the client is working with children, you know, it's a very, very, I should say, well, I'm not going to say it's strenuous, but I would say that it is
regulated.
Yes, most certainly. And regulations are, you have to stick with regulations. So, but like I was going to say about the aspect of changes or regulations and such, and the troubleshooting of it is that we've had people come to us and say, well, we want to put a restaurant where a gas station used to be. Okay, well, and say this building was there for, gosh, since the 1960s, you know, and so all the codes have changed. You know, codes obviously are very important. And that's another thing too I just want to mention, is that we also do code review on occasion, depending on what the project is, because we have to make sure that it's a go-ahead, feasible job to do. We don't want to have a client come to us and say, okay, we're going to put you through the process, and then next thing you know, we're 6 months down the road and they can't do anything with the building because code regulation says that you can't. And so we try to take care of that first and get those little
you were talking about a service station, and I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because the service stations, you know, you have tanks in the ground, and of course you've got to pull those tanks out of the ground. And if anyone decides they want to put a restaurant in a service station, you may want to think twice about that, because you know, that particular venue, that particular location is not suited really for restaurants, unless you're willing to put the money into pulling the tanks out of the ground, which is
and the soil
and soil
and all,
and all of the inspections that have to happen in order for that.
It's intense. Let me tell you, we've had an environmental client, and I was amazed at what they had to do. And it's that would be a real hardship if someone had already bought the land to do that with, and you know.
So we try to avoid that. You know, try to get them to think a little further in the process, and not allow them to, you know, step too quick because they fall in love with the place, and that happens a lot. But you know, you say, well, look, you know, if you're considering this location, there's a couple of things you might want to take in consideration, and we can help you with that. So. That's one of the things we do.
All right. This is a good one. Is your services affordable for small businesses and real estate investors? Because we haven't actually talked about cost.
Yeah. Right. Well, costs are reasonable. They're competitive and they're reasonable. We look at the client's budget. We look at what they're able to afford initially. we kind of cater to that or tailor their budget based on what their needs are. And so, say for instance, if it's a small business and they're just starting out, it could be a small real estate investment, maybe a mom and pop, or just a husband and wife, and they decide, well, honey, we want to go into real estate and we want to buy property, and we want to renovate, or we want to buy a business, or we want to locate on, maybe start a restaurant or whatever the case might be, and they come to us and they want to develop those ideas. And we take them on and we listen to what their needs are, and then we develop their plan based upon what they're able to afford. And then at the same time, we give them the best service and the most high-end services possible as far as renderings and the people that are associated with us. And so
it's certainly, also less expensive than the problems. And the frustration. I had a client that I know that moved, and he got in the building, and when he got in the building, he ended up having to redo bathrooms, redo ceiling, redo plumbing, firewall things, all kinds of stuff that almost put him out of business. Right. If he had known all of that, he would not have gone into that building space. But he didn't know, and when he went to design it, it was almost business ender for him.
Right.
So I can see where, for instance, if he had gone and done this with you, you would have triggered those things to say, hey, it's going to cost you to do this, and this, and to get this up to code or do whatever. Right. And he probably would have saved him an awful lot of time and money.
Yeah, I mean, time and money. I mean,
and frustration.
And frustration.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, almost his business.
Exactly.
It's almost pretty much.
And then some cannot maybe not afford to have that mishap.
Right.
But
the last question I had down here is, and actually you already answered it. You were talking about city planning.
Yeah. I just jumped right.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you already talked about that it can be used for city planning, and that was one of them. Well, it's fascinating. It's of course I'm kind of in the same realm as you in a number of ways, and I know how effective previs can be with my clients. Certainly in the design of space, or the selling, or getting grants, or getting a loan officer to see the vision you have, or whatever. I can see where it would be. I mean, I know it would be a real asset. But I see also that you have a whole team of people that can take it from one end of the spectrum to the other, depending on what they want to do.
Right, exactly.
So you're really well connected. And you've been doing this how long?
Well, this has been, we actually been, I'd say about 13 years.
About 13 years, yeah. So
yeah.
So you know your stuff.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and I've seen your work. You do a nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I think people would benefit from your service. Is there anything that I didn't cover that you'd like to mention?
Well, let's see.
You mentioned residential. I don't think we really got into that.
Residential, yes, residential. Residential is pretty. I would say residential is a good market now. I think it's.
Can you describe a typical residential job?
Sure. Typical residential job. Homeowner says, honey, we want an addition to the home.
Okay.
Maybe they want to add a second floor, maybe add a garage. And the process is pretty much similar.
Same thing.
Similar, but we just are able to accommodate them as well.
Well, I mean, I've used myself when I was redesigning my home office, and all. I have computers and all kinds of editing stations and everything in there too, and so I wanted to try to set it up, and I found that trying to do it on a computer with objects the scale to size, that was a lot easier to rearrange things and see how it was going to look.
That's it.
Than it is to try to do it and then find out that table ain't going there.
It's not going to go there.
And it's a lot less. It saves a lot of frustration and time. So
You know, and also, Roy, I'll mention to you, we've had also like interior designers that have we've actually worked with, which is that's interesting because interior designers, obviously they have their clients, and you know, whether it be for placement of furniture or you know, those aspects of the interior space build. I mean, you know, as far as the aesthetics of their interior spaces for their high-end clients as they may be, or just, you know, just a simple, you know, husband and wife family, you know, they just want to update their property, you know, and update their rooms. But I will say that the space planning works really well in a sense that we can actually just, you know, take the furniture, like move it around.
It's easier to do with a mouse.
That's right. That's like, oh, that was easy. And then, you know, the husband looks, the wife looks at the husband and says, honey, you know, he can do it a lot better than you can. And so I say, well, you know, of course, this is all virtual. He's not really moving real furniture. But of course, you know, he's got his work cut out for him when he does buy the furniture to put into the room.
Right.
But I look at it as a really good asset for people to look into, because it will save them time and money. And, you know, it does give them a different level of understanding to where, you know, it opens up, like they say, you know, pictures speak 1,000 words. Right. And for those who sometimes are challenged with the visualization of how things could be, and that's what we take care of. We make sure that they can actually see their vision come to life.
Well, sounds like you're doing a good job of it.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so if you're doing a project, thinking about a project, opening a company, redoing a space, or you have a space you're trying to sell and would like to help with getting a grant or a loan or the sale of the property by showing it in a finished look state, you could contact William Perry. His contact information is at the end of this video, and it's also at the bottom of this page. I thank you very much for coming in and seeing us today, and I wish you a great deal of success, and it sounds like you're already very successful. But I got a great looking product. I was pretty impressed with what we saw.
Thank you.
So I think you provide a great service for the community.
Thank you.
So people use you.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.